Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel, as is now the pattern, my new VA, well, not new, she's been with me for about 4 months now. Jen has picked our topic for today, and she's going to be picking our topic going forward because you and I have done so many topics that we don't even care so much anymore. Just pick a topic and we'll start talking about it. So I figured, hand it off to somebody who hasn't, kind of been inundated by it and see what she comes up with. And she decided that we were going to talk about authenticity and, your authentic self and so forth.
Sure.
Which is a good topic. I do want to kind of lay down a preamble to it, which is I really believe that the word authentic is overused today to the point of exhaustion, to the point where it almost has lost meaning. But I can at least appreciate what it was originally intended to be meant by those who've been using it a lot lately. So I'm just going to go with that. But I just wanted to let you know that I have a little thing about authenticity. So if you hear me kind of go off the rails, you'll know why. Just
okay.
Like a little
nice to know. Good to know.
Yeah. So just to be fair, but the whole idea of an authentic self, that's the self that's being true to who you really are. That's what that's all about. So I guess I'm not sure what she had in mind in terms of why she wanted to bring the topic up, but it does kind of tie into something you and I were talking about because we were kind of sharing war stories before we got going about stuff, customer service type issues we were dealing with recently that were kind of pulling our hair out.
And porn.
It occurred, well, all right. Well, whatever. and the challenge that comes out of all of this is when we're dealing with somebody under a cloud of frustration, let's put it that way. What we often find is that because people become defensive, people are basically trying to carve out their own territory in the midst of a dispute, it's hard to find authenticity in all of that. And it also occurs to me that defines a lot of what goes on in most people's lives because so many of us live a life of protection and defensiveness and basically sympathetic nervous system as opposed to the relaxed way of living, the way of the authentic person coming out and being their true self. So in kind of a backward and screwed up way, our common experiences the last few days have reminded us of what it is not to be an authentic self, to be authentic, to be true to yourself.
Well, and in sort of supporting what you were saying earlier, that is such a nebulous statement, authenticity. It is because I'm many versions of me over the years. I authentically over the years, what I was authentically in my teens, 20s, 30s, 40s is a much different thing. So I don't think we have a true authentic self anyway. I think that's an ever evolving moving target. I think we have, for example, I have authentically when it comes to I'm a protector of children. There's some core stuff in me that's authentically me. I don't, I don't want to lie. I don't now, but there was a time in my life where all I did was lie. And,
sure.
So the evolution of us as humans changes that what I think our perception of being authentic would be. And so you put yourself in situations where you get very frustrated and then we say, well, be your authentic, calm self, that might not be the authentic you anyway. It's that. Does it make sense? Yeah. So it's really it's become sort of a pop psychology concept of be authentic and I'm not opposed to whoever you are, be that. That's fine. I'm very much a believer in be true to yourself. I work with young people all the time, so wanting them to develop who they are. But I also think the definition of who we are is going to be redefined multiple times over the course of a lifetime. And so I don't think we're born with an authentic personality per se. And I know some people who are just not good people that they're being truly authentic to their evil side. And so it's it's like anything else. There's two sides to it, but the concept in general is be you. And getting in, moving into that category, just whatever version of you are today, the version of me today is, I'm very true to that version of me today. I get up, I do the things, my actions match my word. If I do, I had some frustrating events over the last few days dealing with the internet and company and all these other things. And never once did I yell at anybody. I was calm. There was a time I'd been using all kind of language and screaming at people, but that's changed. That's not me anymore, And so being able to present that with a different flavor is built on the years of changing. So if you started with what is being authentic in the first place, most people would answer being true to yourself. But we have, on any given day, we're a different person than we were the day before in many instances. So
that's a great point. I love that. And well, it also kind of begs the question. I mean, if something is authentic, what is inauthentic? What is the inauthentic self?
Yes. And you have people that with both sides of it. When you have somebody that tries to be something they're not, that can be construed in a couple of different ways as well. So what does that mean? It's like, are you trying to better yourself? I've worked with some people that were born into unimaginable wealth, just way off the chart wealth. They grew up in extreme wealth. They grew up with extreme privilege. And there's some decent people that go through that, but they never struggle. I also work with people who grew up in the most ungodly circumstances imaginable, and have sort of had to learn who they were through a lot of work. They had to develop what works for them, and they had to try on different versions of them to survive. And there are events, and we will often say, well, I would never do this, or I'll never, until you're placed in a situation. Nobody knows what they will do. That's a fact. And you go to a place, and when no matter what's going on, life can happen, and you're not going to be true to yourself sometimes. Sometimes you're going to have to do something differently, and that might be a survival technique. So it's a much bigger thing, and probably not what Jim was wanting us to get into with that concept, but it's never set well with me. Just be authentic. And I'm definitely a march to the beat of your own drummer guy. But being authentic is going to be an evolutionary tale for me. And when I was in the middle of my gambling addiction, stealing money to gamble and doing all that, was authentic version of me at that time.
It's a great point. Yeah. Because a lot of it has to do with how you define yourself. And this kind of gets to the heart of why I think it's become such a pop culture thing. Because what I find, the people who discuss and who bring up authenticity a lot, and it does include guests who have been on the show, by the way. A number of people have come onto the show and talked about how important they felt it was to be authentic, to be the real you. But the thing that I've noticed is that the people who focus on are always focusing on this topic from the point of view of where are you in your own self-development.
Yes.
So authenticity is really defined in terms of either where you are or where you want to be in your own self-development. That's where I think you're going to get a lot of confusion coming into it, because heck, there are times where I have a different idea day to day where it is that I want to be, let alone having a clear, objective, third point of view, idea of where ideally I want to be 10 years from now or something like that.
Right.
That's confusing. So if you have that level of confusion just trying to define it, well, it's no wonder the whole thing kind of gets overused.
Well, and where I think it then can go to the other side of it, to a negative side, is if you're really thinking all the time, who am I authentically? The messages and the emotions attached to that have an effect on how the law of attraction responds in your life. So, when you're, what am I? Who am I? What does that, look like? When you start defining that, especially if you have a negative bias to that, and there's just a lot of purpose, a lot of changes. We all develop in whatever way we're going to develop with the events that happen to us over the years. And hopefully we do grow from it. And you become someone that the authenticity you're speaking of can be something you're proud of. But it is is part of that journey we've all talked about. You and I talked about for so many times, that journey of life. Along that journey, we're usually always behaving authentically, but that's not always a good thing either, because authentically, when I'm in the middle of my chaos, was not a good thing at all.
And probably the way that we define whether it's good is also going to change.
Absolutely.
I mean, at the time, you probably didn't define it as bad. You just defined it as, this is my
Yeah.
goal.
Well, and when you're in fight or flight, or you're struggling, or you're surviving and all that, you're being authentic is simply, it's relegated to just simply surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making decisions based on survival. And when you're making decisions based on survival, it's very seldom any version of authenticity you could imagine. It's just, I just got to make a decision to get through the day concept.
Or at least not a version of authenticity you want to own up to. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. And so but again, it's this growth mechanism that, the life itself has these events, as you and I have talked about a bunch, and these twists and turns, and that develops, that changes, it forces us to change. You get put through the ringer, all that happens, life happens, and you come out on the other side of it. I'm a far different person than I was 30 years ago. And the version of me today, people say, well, you're authentically you. And I go, yeah, but I was authentically me then. It was just a chaotic authenticity.
So perhaps part of the whole idea of authenticity is dependent upon how we feel about what we believe is our authentic self.
Yes. Like defining me right now and defining me 30 years ago, when I was that was the peak of chaos for me. It's not the same person.
No.
It's not, the experiences were different. I was made, the life I have today was granted me by the work I did, everything that happened between now and then. But that evolution along the way was definitely an evolving authentic. If you were saying, well, he's being authentic to himself, it would go, God, he's crazy. Yeah, I was being, it was chaotic. It was crazy. It was irrational. And so it is, when you start getting gurus involved, and you start having these pop culture statements, it takes it into, they literally use it like, you need to be your authentic self. Well, the first question that I have, and I had a kid tell me the other day, this young man, he had listened to some YouTube video, and he goes, I'm looking to be, I just want to be my authentic self. And I said, well, I said, I'm in favor of that, but let's define what that is before we start. You got to know what that is.
Yeah. And that's often well, not usually, but it is often the start of the end point, because we haven't thought that out. We haven't figured that part out. So we just assume, well, yeah, of course I know, but we don't necessarily know. But there's another piece to this that I find is also really fascinating. I'm curious to know what your take is. Like you've talked numerous times, including today, about how you're a different person now from when you were, 30 years ago, something like that, when you're in the depths of the grip of that addiction that you were dealing with. And I know that that's true. I also look back on my own life, and there are times in my life from past years where I feel in many ways a very different person from the same person. And yet, even as I look back throughout all of my years, from the earliest times that I can think of, where I was aware, where I was conscious of being alive and so forth, I feel like the same person. I've been through a whole bunch of stuff. I have made different kinds of decisions. I've changed the way I think about things, but I feel like essentially at my core, I'm the same person. I haven't really, in that sense, changed. What has changed has been my choices, my behaviors, my decisions, and so forth. But the basic core person feels just me. And I mean, I suppose that in the pop culture, we would say, well, that's my authentic self. Is it? I don't know. I suppose it is. Is it possible for it to be inauthentic? I can't even conceive of how that would be.
Yeah, that's where you get into the. I think we all behave authentically at whatever point in life we are. I believe that, and like I know when I was younger, I had a really strong set of morals. I remember when I was a kid, I found a $10 wallet with a $20 bill in it and a receipt.
At
And
a
the
time when that
receipt
was
was
actually worth something.
yeah, yeah, and that receipt was for a doctor. And so my dad took the wallet to the doctor, and he was able to look up the receipt. And it was this lady who really needed the $20.
Wow. Yeah.
And so she was just so happy, and my dad was so proud of me. Well, that was that version of me then, and that was who I really was.
Right.
In the middle of my addiction, that $20 is going in my pocket. It's not going anywhere. To be honest, I mean that's if there was not even a inkling of I need to look this up. That was like, in fact, it wouldn't last. I just go bet it right away. It would be gone. So that was different. Today, I'm back to that version. I don't take anybody's stuff. In fact, I give far, far more away today than I, ever imagined I would.
Sure.
But at the same time, so that evolution of me, I do feel like the base person before everything happened existed is back in a lot of ways. But I'm also much more confident about life. I had a very anxious childhood, and so so when you start talking about authenticity, are we talking about an anxious version of ourselves? Is that part of the authenticity we're talking about? Is that a separate thing? I mean that's the stuff that I start looking at.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And what I was trying to drive at was, isn't there a an aspect of ourselves, or a way of understanding ourselves, perhaps is a better way of saying it, that is continuous throughout our existence? It's just the essence. Perhaps it's the energetic essence. Maybe that's the way to say it. There's an energetic essence to us that is always core. It's always there. It's what some people perhaps would refer to as the interconnection to higher self. But however you decide to frame it, to me, that's always been there. That's
Yes.
always been a just that's the core of me. No matter what choices I've made, no matter what mistakes I've made, none of that makes any sense in terms of understanding what that core is. The core is always the core. It
Yes.
never ever changes. The only thing that changes is how I decide to live with that core, how I decide to use that core, what are the decisions that I make in my life. But the core is pretty much the core. It keeps coring on.
Coring on, yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with life situations too, how you were born, what you were born into. Yeah, I was born into chaos and extreme. So I developed this protective. Everything was survival at a
Yeah,
young
sure.
age. You come with, if you've ever lived with an alcoholic parent or grandfather who was very abusive, you know, I had to learn at 5 years old. You had to walk very quietly through the house, not to
Mm,
disturb him,
yeah,
uh, because that would ruin the whole evening for the entire family.
right, right,
So I was spending a lot of energy at 5 years old not to upset my drunk grandfather,
right.
and that
Yeah.
was so there wasn't a lot of time spent on how I felt or thought. It was simply,
Mm,
I don't want to see him go rageful and hurt anybody or scream at us, and
yeah,
the police come, all this scary stuff. So we're going to be really, really quiet. So you can be born into situations that just there's no way that was my authentic self, but I had to create this wall to survive. And so
in other words, even if there was a core, you didn't have any time to spend there.
I'm managing. He used to snore so incredibly loud,
Oh,
and
geez.
one of the big moments at night is when he would start snoring. He was usually out for the night, and I was like,
So that was a relief point.
yes, yes. So and again, I'm 5 or 6 years old, so there,
Right.
do with that as you must, but it was this event. So there are things, and as you know, I don't complain about my childhood. I don't feel I'm a victim of my childhood. I believe everything that happened made me the man I am today. So I'm not rehearsing this in a way that is but just explaining that you didn't grow up in the childhood I did,
Right.
and I didn't have. So number one for me was, I don't want to see him go off and you know, beat my grandmother or hurt me or hurt my mom.
Right.
So we just need to be quiet, just quiet.
Right.
And so that if somebody says, "Are you being your authentic self, Joel?" Shh, shh, don't say any words. Don't say any words. Let
It
wait till you
wasn't
hear the
really,
snoring, and then we can talk.
it wasn't at the top of the list of the things that you were considering at that point in time.
Right, exactly. So it is like that premise. So it is a definite fascinating thing, but when you look at it, but I just think that every single person that I know and whatever they've been through, whatever we have done, and it might not have been a good attempt at it,
Mm.
but everything we're doing is trying to get through the day, trying to get through life, whatever. We have coping mechanisms that we develop, and they often aren't healthy.
Yeah.
But yet the procrastination part,
Oh, yeah.
do you know anybody that procrastinates?
I never really got around to figuring that part out.
Yeah. So, but with the ADHD brain, procrastination is something that comes with that often. So, is my authentic self someone who procrastinates, or in my life today, I just don't. I just dive into everything because I just know that's the way to do it. So if that was authentically a procrastinator, what I was born into, it's not today because I don't procrastinate. I just get it done. Take
Mm-hmm.
leaps.
Mm-hmm. This points to something else really important, I think. And it once again demonstrates just how elusive this whole concept of authenticity really is. Because if we grow up in a situation somewhat perhaps similar to yours, where there really wasn't time to do any kind of introspective work, it was basically survival mode, fight or flight, continuous, and you're dealing with that all day long. That's really where we learn the idea that all of our solutions are outside of ourselves.
Yes.
So if we're learning that, is that authentic or inauthentic? I think you can make an argument either way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I mean, really, you could.
Yeah. Well, and that's what makes it such a convoluted discussion, because it's so experience based, experiential. It's so it's perspective, and when you throw in, and nobody's wrong here. It's just
No.
understanding. Like if imagine your house is on fire, and you're not sitting in your house going, I need to respond to this in the most authentic way possible. What is that? It you just need to grab some stuff and get the hell out of there. Get what you
Yeah.
can. That's it. That's it. There's no, but yet there's this. The luxury that we are often afforded in today's lifestyle. That's where these questions of authenticity can come
Mm.
up, and it's I don't imagine in 1750 some family that has a small farm outside of wherever that would be,
Mm.
discussing the authenticity of their lives as we better get the crops in or we're going to die.
Yeah, I doubt that was really on the dinner table. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it comes with that, but it's still a very fascinating discussion. But as with anything with the law of attraction, if your pursuit of authenticity is affecting you emotionally and bringing you to a place, see, that's where it could be beneficial. If who am I, what I want to do, then you can work on that. And nobody wants to be a scumbag, so maybe the idea that I need to be able to adjust. I want to be helpful. I want to be able to help other people. Then, that could really come a long way, and that authentic self, pursuing that authenticity. So it's going to be a loaded question depending on so many factors. And that is and that's life in general. Everybody wants to talk, everything's gray. The white and black is a very seldom a choice. There's always the gray area.
This is very true. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't like that, by the way.
It's amazing for people who don't like that. We spend an awful lot of time in it.
Oh, we do. You got
I
to.
mean, seriously.
Life is. I mean, I don't mean to sound negative, but life is the gray area.
It really is. Yeah, it truly is. Maybe you're touching on what the real value of authentic of the idea of authentic self really is. Maybe the value is in using it as a tool for self-exploration.
I love that. Now, becoming the version of you that is optimal, and whatever
Hmm.
that means to you.
Right.
So, like a lot of people wouldn't want my lifestyle. I run pretty hard. I go every day. Uh, when I get all the questions all the time, when are you going to slow down? When are you going to retire? It's just, that's not happening. And I'm good with that. That's what I want. That's not out of necessity. It's just how my brain works. I love my life. I love my career. I love it, and that I get the results that match that. But that's not going to be everybody else. There's some people that would like absolutely wouldn't remotely want my lifestyle.
Sure, sure.
And so being authentic to them, like are you being authentic to yourself? I'm being authentic to the version of me that makes me the most happy.
Which is now there, I think we're starting to zero in on it.
There you
What makes
go.
you most happy?
Yeah.
That's one of the first questions to ask yourself when you're trying
Yes.
to identify what you really want, what it is that
Yes.
you're really after, what's important to you, what your value structure is.
Completely. Yes.
Because once you start asking those questions and then answering them, I guess you're first of all satisfying what the pop guru people think is important to do where authenticity is concerned, but you're doing something even more important. You're aligning your life with the direction you want it to be in.
Yes.
There's nothing more important than that.
Absolutely. At
Yeah,
all.
yeah. So maybe it does have a role, even if it's something we can't really define very well.
Yeah. Well, but I think that to me that was sort of the point of where I saw it when I heard the question
Hmm.
is this isn't something you can define very well. It's not.
Hmm.
It's not a. This isn't one of those black and white things. It's the idea that what does it mean to be authentic, have authenticity? It's like, well, it's you ask everybody and you're going to get a different answer, and ask them where they're at. If I go into prison right now and interview somebody in the middle of a 30-year sentence, and I'm going to say, well, what is being authentic like to you right now?
Mm.
I'm not going to like that answer probably.
Not really.
um,
I'm not sure.
but
I'm not even going to ask the question. Maybe you're more, daring than I am, but I'm not even going to ask that
yeah,
one.
I don't want. I don't. I probably know the answer to. I don't want to ask that question, but that's a whole different show. Uh, but seriously, it's just So that's what makes when people ask me, what should I do? What is this? And you know, it's like you're an individual, and we need to find the individuality within you. Again, march to the beat of your own drum. That's one of my favorite sayings.
Mm.
Now, that drum evolves, that drum changes. And so that the beat of that drum will change over the years. To me, that was always a better benchmark than authenticity. Is the beat of your drum is going to change with the evolution of your life. I believe that, and keep marching to that beat. It'll never let you down.
We've mentioned in the context of talking about law of attraction, we've mentioned Abraham Hicks many times over the years on the show. And one of my favorite Abraham things is they like to use the analogy of the beating drum as a way to express the various teachings that they like to express.
Yes.
And the most common way that they use that phrase is to use it to describe focusing your attention on and doing something that you really don't want. So,
Ooh.
so they'll say you keep beating the drum of the thing that you don't want. You keep beating the drum of the thing that you're against. And they make the point that the more that you do that, the more that you attract of it. So they're making it as a way of teaching how law of attraction actually works. It's a great analogy. I think it's one of the reasons I liked Abraham so much,
Yes.
because, like you said, you march to the beat of your own drum. But even more importantly, from my perspective, you're the drummer.
You are.
You're the one who's setting that drum beat. So
Yes.
if you want to know what's going on in your life, look what you're beating the drum about.
Well, that's always, and that from the day one when I had that visual, when I heard march to the beat of your own drum, I've envisioned. I never thought anybody else was a drummer. It's always been me.
Yeah, yeah. And because it's always you, that's also it's almost like setting a trap for yourself.
Yes.
Because when you recognize that what you're trying to do is to march to the beat of your own drum and that you're the drummer, that kind of cuts off all your routes of escape from I'm responsible for my own life.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one who's drumming here.
Yes. Yes.
It's very annoying, actually.
It is. It really is.
Because now you're having to face the reality of the fact that you are the single lowest common denominator of your own life.
That's
It's not
that,
fun all the time.
it's not. It's not. That's a great point.
So, and that's one of the reasons I like the Abraham teaching so much, because they use that analogy, they use that metaphor as a way to really zero in on where the responsibility is. And that responsibility is tough, it's challenging, it's frightening at times. At times, it's even intimidating,
Sure.
even though I'm the one who's doing it to myself. I almost especially because I'm the one doing it to myself.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I was first exploring the idea of how I was torturing myself for the first time, that was literally terrifying.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. It has to be. Yeah.
Because
And when
at that point, all I could think is, how could I do that to myself?
well, and because you didn't know any better, it was a habit. It was
Yeah,
developed. It was, you didn't know you were doing anything to yourself.
that's right.
That's the thing.
That's right.
And that's where, when we talk about Abraham Hicks, they're always big on identify your emotions, what you're feeling.
Mhm.
So when you are not treating yourself well, the emotions that go along with that are part of the emotional guidance scale. That's before you knew all that stuff. So why
Yeah.
am I doing this? Why am I, the idea it feels productive. Worry, for example, feels productive and necessary at first.
Mm.
I know a lot of people that, one of my favorite questions that I'll have a client ask me, should I be worried about that? And I go, well, yeah, great. Let's see how that works.
I love that advice. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but what intrinsic value does worry have? It doesn't.
Yeah,
It
I've gone off on that one a few times. The thing that it keeps doing, though, is it keeps rebounding back to me, because despite all the different ways that I've railed against worrying, guess what I spend far too much time doing?
yes,
It's like, what the? And then
yeah,
I realize that I'm beating myself up for doing something that I don't really want to be doing.
yeah, exactly. And that's the or the overthinking, the constant, not
Yes.
even about worry, but just thinking of every scenario, and anything that creates that
Well, that
within
is
you.
worrying. It
Well,
actually is.
it is, but most people want to separate them, and I don't.
True.
It's
Fair point. Yeah.
yeah. Overthinking is you're over rehearsing, which leads to anxiety, which leads to worry. It's all built into the same package,
It
and
really is. Yeah.
it doesn't offer anything. And
No.
if it were productive, I would recommend it. It doesn't offer anything.
If it
Uh,
were productive, I'd be the most successful human being on the face of the
Well,
earth. Let me
I
tell
mean,
you.
imagine all the neurotic people out there would be,
That's
leaders.
right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be amazing. But it
Blessed
just,
are the neurotic, for they shall inherit the earth.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And but in reality, it's people that, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. And the worry, unless you're focusing, with any worry, one of the only formula that I know is, when I identify a overthinking or worrying process, what part of this is in my direct control?
Mm,
And if it is not in my direct control, then I cannot spend any time on it, because that's going to happen however that's going to happen.
mm.
It, you
Yeah.
know, and so I have talked to a client today that's very worried about world issues, political issues, and a lot of that stuff. And I'm like, I don't have that same fear, because I don't know about this. Don't you worry about this or that? I don't, because I can't control it, and I'm going to respond to it the only way I can. And unless there's something I can do about it, why am I going to give it any energy?
Yes. And that is one of the hardest things to learn.
Yeah.
It really is. That is one of
Yes.
the hardest things to learn. The idea that there are some things I simply cannot control, and that every time I try to do so, I am simply harming myself.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's not what
That's
we want to hear.
no.
Not even
No,
close.
no. That's exactly. But that like the whole again the whole concept of all that's going on, and I don't even know what's going on because I don't keep up with most of what's going on, and but I certainly I feel the energy of people that start talking to me about it. They're very worried.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're very concerned. And but if you understand what that does with you in the law of attraction, you're not going to fix it by worrying. You're drawing more attention to it.
Yeah. I'm amused and saddened at the same time by an incident that happened recently, and I won't go into the details because it's not my personal business. But there was somebody I interacted with through social media who expressed an opinion about something kind of similar to what we're talking about here. Something related to global issues, country issues, that kind of thing. And I made a point, kind of along the lines of what we're talking about here, that if you change your way of thinking about something, your experience changes too. And he thought that was the stupidest thing he ever heard in his life.
Yeah.
He thought that was absolutely stupid. And I thought to myself, I know that guy because that was me.
Yeah.
I know exactly what that feels like. I know what that space is like. I know what that mindset is like. I don't want to go back there again. To borrow a phrase that you've used over and over again, I'm grateful for having gone through it because I learned a lot from it. And tying into what we are just talking about, there's nothing I can do about him. As much as I might want to, there's not a thing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Unless he's willing to start shifting, to open his mind in some way, to start considering alternatives, I can't help him at all.
So what you're saying is he is out of your control.
Totally.
Yeah. And when you realize that, you just are never going to be able to. He will always think you're crazy.
Yes. Yep. And funnily enough, I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I could not remotely worry about all the people that think I'm crazy, Walt. That would, Lord, can you imagine? That's a
Yeah,
long.
I'd
That's a
rather
long
not.
list. Yeah, but
Imagine that it's too painful to even think about.
yeah, but seriously, but so within that, at best, I just know some people that I hear I see what they post, and I most of the time I never ever comment on any of that stuff because I know for a fact I'm not going to change their mind,
Nope.
and I'm not going to bring that energy where I need to feel I need to engage or go to that level with them. They're going to have to figure this out, and
That's the key right there. You don't want to bring your energy there.
yeah, it's not about them. I'm not going to fix. If somebody came to me and said, "What I'm worried about," the whatever the issue is, the Israeli war, and I'm the effects it's having on this or that, and if you came to me and said, "What can I do about it?" I'm going to nothing at all, zero, and your awareness of it is something that's creating stress and anxiety in you. But the law of attraction is going to respond to having more things to be stressed and anxious about. It's not going to fix the war with you worried about that. It's not going to change that. Your power generally exists in voting for the political party you believe best would fit your agreement.
That's very
And
much.
if you want to donate to charities to help whatever side, all those,
Yep.
but you have very limited things you can do about it.
That's right.
So it's those are agreements that are taking place between those people, and I would love. I'm not pro-war at all, but I'm also real that I can't go fix it. The solution's there, but it's not mine to find.
One of the harder parts for me was recognizing not only is it something I can't fix, but there are a lot of people who actively want war.
Oh yeah, it's profitable.
Well, more than profitable. I mean, there are people who want to be in war. I
Yeah,
mean, video games, look how many video games are about being the hero, the action hero in a war situation.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's massive. So clearly there is a significant portion of the population that wants that experience.
yeah, yeah. And it's I had this this lady who was having an argument with another lady at the grocery store the other day about eggs, the price of eggs.
They weren't
And
complaining about how many eggs we were buying again, did they?
no, no,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's
because
all.
that
I'm
happened
saying.
right before, so that it made me think.
Yeah, yeah. No, that wasn't egg day, so there was
That
no
wasn't
problem there.
okay. Okay.
But so I'm walking by, but they're having this discussion that a carton of eggs was something like $6.
No, okay.
And so they were going back and forth, and and my solution was, and I'm not involved, by the way. I just heard as I walked by, and nor am I going to. I didn't comment, but either you buy the eggs, or you don't buy the eggs. If everybody quits buying eggs, they'll go down in price. Everybody keeps paying the price. It's just really that simple. But all the angst they were having amongst themselves, and somehow they turned it into a political discussion.
Mm.
And it was like, and I want to buy eggs, whatever eggs cost. I mean, I need eggs. I go through a lot of eggs. So if they're $10 a carton, they're $10 a carton.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my perspective. That's just simply my perspective.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you touched on the right idea too, putting the energy into it.
Yes.
Because like we were talking about before, we find ourselves in places in life where we put our energy into things at the same moment that deep down we say to ourselves, why am I putting energy into this thing? But we do it anyway.
Yes. Yes.
That's very common. I know from personal experience how common that is. It is extremely common.
Yes, it really is. And that's what I want you, that's what not you, but that's what I want people to understand. The energy that, when these things happen, these arguments, these frustrations, and all that goes on, it is on one level is benign, but as far as how it affects you, all you're doing is whatever you're complaining about or fearful of, you're inviting more of in your life.
Yeah.
That's the law of attraction. How you're
That's
feeling,
right.
you're inviting more of that. So if it's angst, anxiety, stress, whatever it is about the future and all that, you're going to get more of that.
That's again, that ties into that hard lessons learned that we have. What was the word that my guest today used? Agency. I had a guest right there who kept using the word agency. We have agency over what happens in our own lives.
That's it.
And we have a lot of agency over that. In fact, close to 100%, not quite, but pretty close to 100% agency. There are certain things that happen to us that we don't have a lot of control over, but for the most part, it's pretty hard to separate us from the experiences because there's a lot of decision making going on there.
Well, and when you make the decisions over and over, this time of year, a lot of people are putting emphasis on their physical health. They go to the gym,
right?
And and I'm not judging anyone, but so this lady at the gym the other day, she knew her and she's working out. Good to see her and all that. And I heard her talking to her friend, saying, "I don't know why I'm so fat." Well, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But I could have probably answered a lot of that because of it's what you eat. It's how it works. And yeah, but
what goes in stays in.
Yeah, stays in. It's a simple formula. What you burn, you got to burn more than you have in. That's it. I mean, it really works out well. Now, it's none of my business. But I really would go. Really, you don't know. You really don't know why. You don't know why, but but we do that to ourselves a lot. I just don't understand why. I don't exercise. I feel stiff. I don't. It's like, okay, well, that's it. The one guy, I was walking up the stairs, and I heard him say, that the upstairs to the gym is there's 2 floors, and he was huffing and puffing going upstairs, and he says, "Yeah, I should probably just take the elevator." Now he's at the gym. So I didn't say anything, but I wanted to point out that mindset's probably why you're huffing and puffing going upstairs.
That took a lot of, personal integrity to not say something in
Yeah,
that
I don't.
situation.
I've learned over the years. I just don't comment. It's not healthy for me or them. But especially with just absurd things. It's like the guy was this one of my friends. Not really a friend, but he I know he's an acquaintance.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So about 10 years ago, he met his wife at a bar. She was married, and they connected. She ended up leaving her husband for him.
Mm.
Well, he texted me the other day going, "Yeah, she's cheated on me. She's leaving."
That was a
And I
big
go,
shock.
he goes, and I don't know what happened. I go,
Yeah.
"Oh,"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I'm sorry to hear that." I'm like,
Mm.
"That's the least shocking thing that happened in your relationship." I mean, you literally met her
Yeah.
when she was. I mean, of course she did that. That's her pattern. And but just don't act shocked, but just understand that's how it works.
This is true. And yet
Yeah.
we're so good at deceiving ourselves.
Well, and then the danger of deceiving yourself is the emotion that's attached to it. The idea. This is definitely not a popular term right now. But when you constantly cast yourself as the victim in every situation, all you do is you make yourself a victim in all situations. It's just that's how it works. It's not that's the law of attraction at play.
I saw another comment from somebody. I don't even remember what the context was. Uh, I just don't remember. It's skipped my mind. But the comment was that you got to be careful about saying to someone that they're a victim because they could end up blaming themselves for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, wait a minute, isn't playing the victim, isn't that blaming? So
Yeah.
how does that work again?
Yeah. It don't try to go down that logic,
No,
but there, I post on Facebook and on Instagram quite a bit. Instagram is more of a global following, and where Facebook is more friends answer that.
right. Yeah.
But I'm there are groups of people that sometimes like this one lady called me a victim shamer because I'm a law of attraction believer. I shame victims,
Yes.
and
Shame on you. Terrible.
yeah, and I of course I don't answer those things
Of
generally,
course.
but nonetheless it's you hear that, and you that's how this keeps getting perpetuated in life.
Mm.
And that's that idea. Like, one of the things I noticed on social media is there's people, young people often will, and when they have their descriptions of who they are, I saw the other day this young lady she said, "I am neurodivergent." She had like 5 diagnoses, which, by the way, they all couldn't exist
Oh, really?
because, yeah, they were all over. She could not have all those diagnoses just because they overlap.
Uh,
But she listed 5 things, mentally, that were wrong with her,
mm,
as like, this is my definition of me.
wow.
And she's, and her all her posts are negative, and I have the worst life ever, and I'm because of this, and I just really quick had to, I stopped reading it
Mm,
because it was just, I was like, oh, I feel bad just reading for it, but
yeah,
she's not going to hear that.
that's right.
Yeah, it's really sad, and and I think it's pervasive right now. And I am a helper of people. I'm not about
Absolutely.
shaming people. I'm a helper of people. But sometimes you got to be told to get off your ass and let's do something. That shit. Sometimes that is the answer.
It sometimes is, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to look at this stuff when you're looking at yourself,
Yes.
when you're trying to examine this stuff up close, because my goodness, we have so many different ways that we crossed our own boundaries over the years.
Yes.
It's just not comfortable.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel good to look at that stuff, and it can feel like an attack on your own personhood. I think that's where the whole authenticity thing really comes into it.
Yes. I
Because
agree with
people who
that.
are saying be authentic, what they're really saying is in a sense, be kind to yourself as you're examining yourself,
Yes.
because that's the real you. The
Yes.
real you is the kind you. If you're not enforcing, if you're reinforcing the you that is constantly battering yourself, all you're doing is setting yourself up to be your own abuser.
Yes. Completely.
That's really it
That's
at
it.
the
I mean,
core.
that's it. Bottom line. That's how it goes. So that's going full circle with the original topic, and that the idea that you know, what you eventually the story you tell about yourself, the subconscious programming of who you are, has taken place over decades
Mm,
for people our age at least, and so the idea that we have become accustomed to that negative programming, that negative dialogue, internal dialogue, or where you're just constantly putting yourself down. So that is reality. Everything you're
mm,
telling yourself is reality, but reality can only be based on you, on your
yeah,
reality. Different. I have an entirely different. It took a lot of years to reprogram that subconscious brain, and I have a much different reality now.
which just shows how powerful we really are.
Yeah, because we are powerful. We have that. It doesn't mean my life's perfect. I've never got on here and say, "Oh, it's perfect." I have normal stuff that happens. I have an incredible life. I love my life, and I'm going to continue to have things in my life that I love. But my pet died the other day.
Yeah,
That did, that was very sad for me.
sure.
My pet died, and 9 years we've had Mango. The Mango's been on this show.
So that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember she was
yeah,
on. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and her brother was on too, if I remember
Brother
correctly.
Pikachu was on it years ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, but at the same time, as I do with everything, I'm really grateful for the time I had with my bearded dragon. She was the sweetest, kindest, gentlest creature on the planet.
Mm,
I truly loved her, and I miss her. But yet, she brought great joy, and that's what I focus on. And
right. Right.
and so yeah, I have a life where things really happen, real life things happen, and my response to them has been I'm prepared to respond from years of conditioning the subconscious brain to see it differently.
It is it's a testament to what you have done to grow yourself that you're able
Yes,
to do that. It's also a testament to what's possible.
yes, I agree with
And
that.
if I was going to summarize your story in just a couple words, you took what seemed impossible and made it possible.
And I didn't even know what I was doing,
And
so
you
that
didn't
was
even,
cool.
well, yeah, that's the longer version. Yeah.
I don't want to do it, but somehow, but again, finding, it all began. There's only one thing that really mattered. When I realized, and I can go on for hours about all the different things I learned. My perspective dictates my reality.
Mm,
Once I understood that, the law of attraction then started responding to my perspective. Now, this was a longer period of time because I had to believe that. But once I really started understanding that I don't have a negative internal dialogue anymore, I don't. It's just it's all. I'm expecting things to work out. I had a frustrating call with Verizon a couple of days in a row trying to get internet straight up, but I'm nice to all the people. It
mhm,
was I was bringing that positive energy. I mean, we eventually got it conquered. It was
mhm.
um, but at the end of the day, I it didn't ruin my day. It was a part of my day. It was frustrating, but you know I'm also grateful to be in a position I could work around my schedule and make that happen. So it was okay.
Yeah. And I was sharing with you before we got going how I'm dealing with a thing with QuickBooks right now.
Yes,
Is ongoing. It's been going for months. It's been particularly going for over a week now. It still has not achieved resolution. I don't even know if it will be resolved, which is a really weird thing to have to say. And is it affecting me? Yeah, it affects me. But all of the work that I've been doing over the last 12 plus years is paying off because
yes,
as much as it affects me for 5 minutes and then I'm done.
yes,
It's not affecting me throughout the rest of my day. After I get past those first 5 minutes, it's like shrug my shoulders. Well, what am I going to do next? No more messing around with it. No more, going on and on about it. No more, feeling frustrated and feeling worrying about it. Oh my God, how's this thing going to iron out? Like out of my control. Most of the stuff that is causing this to happen is outside my control. I have very limited things that I can do. I know what they are. I know which way I will go if certain things play out. I'm done.
Yeah.
Nothing else to do at that point.
And once you've done, and my Verizon issue was spread out over several days as well.
Mm-hmm.
But once I realized at the end of that day there was nothing else to do,
Yeah.
I wasn't upset. The next day I attacked it again, and eventually I got to the. So the ability to be able to deal with things, because frustrating things are going to still happen.
They do.
There's going to be events within that, but also understanding they don't run days. They just, being frustrated is much different than losing your entire perspective. And never once did I say, "Man, my life sucks now." It's a stupid internet connection. It doesn't. I need it, but I don't. The world doesn't fall apart if I don't have it.
That's right.
You
I
know.
think you touched on the thing that probably gives us our finishing point for the conversation. And I don't remember exactly just how you phrased it just now, but it ties back to the original concept. What is authenticity? What does it mean
Yes.
to be inauthentic and so forth? And a huge portion of that is, how do I feel about myself right now? That's
Yes.
literally what you were talking about.
And being able to I almost said it when I said this, because it sounds equally as pop culture-ish psychology. So I don't even like to say it, but I don't hate myself anymore. I it sounds weird to say you love yourself, but I like who I have become. I really do. I enjoy me. I
Yeah.
make myself laugh all the time. I'm hilarious.
And I love that about you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I truly enjoy life. I've gotten to a place where I really enjoy. I love the weirdness of life, the ups and downs. Now, that took me a while to get there. That wasn't an overnight thing, but being authentically me today is just enjoying it. How do you feel about yourself? Just getting up and going. And I'm going to screw up. I'm going to, this guy sent me an email today. So I've sent you 4 emails trying to set up an appointment. I could have got defensive, and I go, "Yep, you did." And I gave him an appointment date. He goes, "I'll take it." I go, "Okay, good." He did. I just missed it. He stopped. Just missed it. When you get 70 emails every day and 50
Yeah.
texts, it's hard to keep up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no doubt about that. I guess I wanted to finish up on this whole point of loving yourself, because you made the comment that you love your life, you feel good about yourself.
Yes.
And I'm remembering when I went through the mirror work a number of years ago, where I was working on trying to build up some self-love. I was trying to do that really hard thing where you look in the mirror and you tell yourself, "I love you," and so forth.
Yes.
And how difficult that was the first few times. But I was also blown away what happened after 30 days of that. Actually, it took about 17 to 18 days before it started to happen. I got to the point where just by doing that exercise, that negative chatter that kept going on all the time stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And with little exceptions here or there, it hasn't returned.
I love that.
That is just like, I have times like anybody else where things aren't going right. But if I can, I try to remember the fact that I left that chatter behind and it hasn't returned. Because it's such a point of relief, of release, and a
It really
reminder
is.
that I really can do this. I
Yeah.
can do that kind of crap.
I love that. That's strong.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that everybody who goes on one of these learning curve paths has moments like that where they realize that was a turning point for me. It's not the turning point. It is a turning point. It is a point where I gained some self-improvement. I gained that authenticity we're talking about, where we're trying to reach at.
Some people, some people never have the turning point. They have a bunch of turning points.
Yeah, I don't think I have ever had the turning point. I'm not even sure what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, even with I've had some drastic turning points, but there were multiples along the way.
Right. Yeah. But you'd probably be hard pressed to decide which one was the turning point.
Yeah. Yeah, it really requires some work, but we turned this into a good topic anyway.
We did, yeah. And how nice, we don't have to identify what the turning point is.
Yes, completely. Yeah.
It takes all the pressure off.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, and I'm glad your issue got ironed out with Verizon. I'm hoping the same thing happens for me with QuickBooks, and whatever issues that our listeners are experiencing, I hope the same thing happens there. What I do know is this: shake it off.
Shake it off. I love that. Have a good one, Walt. See you next week.
Yep. See you next week. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.